tuned in to The American Cream. The American Cream. The American Cream. A show for people seeking truth about money and how to really achieve the American dream with cream. During the next hour, you're invited to learn how credit, real estate, entrepreneurship, assets, and mindset are essential to helping you achieve the American dream. American dream. American dream. Please join your host, Hyacinth Henderson, for today's episode.
On today's episode of The American Cream, I have the honor and pleasure of having with us today Miss Tina Howell from Miami, Florida.
Hey.
All right, so instead of doing a general introduction such as reading your bio, I typically like to start off the podcast by asking my podcast guests to tell me exactly who they are. Tell me, who is Tina Howell?
Most people in Miami say I'm the wing lady.
The wing lady?
The Wingstop lady, and that's because I opened the first Wingstop franchise in Miami-Dade County.
Okay, so we have Miss Tina Wingstop Howell here with us today.
Yes.
We're going to call you Miss Wingstop. Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So before we get into the entrepreneurial aspect of the Wingstop lady, I want you to go back. Let's go back a little bit and tell me about how we arrived here. Tell me about where you came from, like who you are, how you arrived to where you are now. Let's go ahead and paint a picture for our audience.
Okay, so born and raised in Coconut Grove. Back when the Grove wasn't as nice as it is now, it was considered the hood, quote unquote. And between there and New York, I lived in New York for a while between the age of 1 and 18, the ages of 1 and 18, but mostly in Coconut Grove.
Coconut Grove is a suburb of Miami, Florida. And tell me about your experience there as a kid. Were you raised around entrepreneurs, people who owned their own businesses? What was your childhood like growing up in Coconut Grove?
So I grew up in an environment that was poverty-stricken. We were very, very, very poor. It was a community of not even so much working class people. A lot of the people there were on welfare and struggling. Single family home. My mom worked and did what she did. She was a home health aide for a while, making minimum wage. I never knew my father, so that was my story back then. Basically didn't have access to a lot of resources. I'm actually an only child. So I have no brothers and sisters. My mom's an only child, so I have no cousins, no nieces, no nephews, no aunts, no uncles.
Wow.
So the community that I lived in was my family, and unfortunately back then, the community wasn't one that I was involved in that promoted education or good decision making with regards to health, finances, schooling, lifestyle choices.
Okay, so is it safe to say that you weren't raised with a silver spoon, or you weren't born in an environment where money and financial planning and just entrepreneurship were topics of conversation?
They weren't topics of conversation, but entrepreneurship, what I realize now is, and I use the word hustle. My mom taught me hustle. She struggled and never got a college education. I don't even know if she graduated high school, but I watched her make a way out of no way. I watched my mom find ways to generate income for us. And in that environment also, there were a lot of men who chose to be drug dealers. And it's not the best thing. I can't even call it a profession, but I call it a hustle because I watched them work to figure out a way to make money the best way that they knew how. And so I honestly think that being in that environment, I watched people figure out how to create a way to make money. Good or bad, I'm not condoning or supporting the method, but that was my introduction to quote unquote entrepreneurship. It wasn't having someone in the family who owned the corner grocery store or having someone who had a great education, who learned business in college and went out and opened a business. It was watching people make a way out of no way in my community.
And really, that's what entrepreneurship is, right?
Exactly.
It's making a way out of no way. It's creating income, creating sources of income, and figuring it out. We just call it entrepreneurship now, but you make a very good point. You said, hey, I looked around my community, and whether they were selling drugs or hustling otherwise, they were figuring it out. And so would you say that that's what exposed you or introduced you to entrepreneurship in that way?
I think that and my mindset growing up in that environment, and there's this debate that's been going on forever. Are you born a leader, or do you learn how to become a leader? Are you born to eventually become an entrepreneur, or do you learn how to become an entrepreneur? I think for me, it's a combination of both. I think I've always been driven. I was just born that way. I'm built that way genetically. And the impact of seeing people in my community figure out a way to provide for themselves financially, on top of me looking around and saying, okay, I want a great life. I don't want to struggle. As I grew and became a teenager, I don't want to have to live in a community that's stricken with poverty. And my drive, my natural drive combined, I think, is what you could say caused me to look at entrepreneurship, which I didn't even hear the word. I don't ever remember hearing that word. I just knew I was not going to be poor and struggling all my life.
Okay. Got it. So you wanted better. You saw,
absolutely.
You were aware, you looked around, and you said, I have to figure this out.
That's right.
And so let's talk about, you talked about when you were a teenager. How did you figure this out? Talk to me about high school and after high school.
So in high school, education wasn't a focus. My mom didn't really know whether I went to school or not. And I was exposed to, I experimented with drugs. I didn't focus on education. So I almost flunked out of high school. What happened was I had a friend of a relative lived in New York. And when I was in 9th grade, I made a decision and looked around and said, if I don't leave this community, I may not make it out. And so I called that friend of a relative in New York and said, can I come live with you? And they said yes. And I left Miami and went to live with a family who was very strict, not so loving, not very supportive of me emotionally. But it was a great environment for me to thrive in terms of focusing on my education. Finishing high school, I ended up finishing New York as a vice president of my senior class.
Wow.
Doing well, had a great GPA. But after high school, I had nowhere to go because no one told me about college. I really didn't understand. And so I had to either get out of that house or go back to Miami. And I joined the military.
Okay.
So I went to the Army Reserve because I didn't want to be in the military forever. So I was like, okay, let me go to Army Reserve. I get food, I get a paycheck, I get a roof over my head. Let me figure it out. And so I actually joined the Army Reserve and did that. And after the first year, I was able to figure out when I came back home for a few months that I could find a way to get into college.
Wow.
And applied to Florida A&M University and got accepted and went on to college.
Wow, what a journey. So you realized at an early age that the community that you were in was a community of opportunity, but you needed to do something different. So being in 9th grade, was that 14 or 15 years old, you called a relative of a friend and moved to New York and recognized that, hey, this is a strict family. There are certain things that they're going to be able to give me, certain things they aren't going to be able to give me, but this is what I need. And you stayed in New York, graduated from high school at the top of your class, so that you could finish school.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I think that in itself is just, it speaks volumes, and it's a testament to just, who you are and what you saw early on, because your story could have been very different. You could have just said, hey, I'm in this environment. This is what I see. I see people hustling and selling drugs, and I may not have the parental support that I would have liked to have, but this is just it. But you did the opposite. You said, I need to figure out a way out. You need to figure out how to make money. And so you went and you needed to catch your breath a little bit. And so that's where the military came in. So you caught your breath in the military and then decided that you were going to go to college.
Yeah, because the military doesn't pay a whole lot. It's a way out. But remember, I was driven. I had goals. I wanted to be rich. I didn't understand what wealthy was. I didn't want to be poor. I didn't want to be broke. And I quickly realized, and I knew before I joined, you can't get rich in the military. I don't know about anyone else. I didn't think I could. So I figured I could go to college, and back then becoming a doctor or a lawyer, those were the rich people. So I said, I'll go to college and I'll become a doctor or a lawyer, and then I'll become rich.
Okay, so it was always, we got to get some money.
I was thinking as you were speaking, a lot of times when I talk to people, they say, but I can't. I don't know how. I can't. I don't know how. And I feel like for me, I never allowed myself to get caught up in my circumstances, and I can't, and I don't know how. I just always had the mindset that I've got to do better. I'm going to do better. I will figure it out. Where there's a will, there's a way. And I just kept pushing. And when I failed and something didn't work out, I just tried something else.
Wow. That's amazing. And that's one of those life principles, right? You can take that whether it's 1920, 2018 or 19. That is one of those principles that are timeless, where there is a will, there's a way, and you have to figure it out. I think it's so important that you mention that, and it's a large part of your story, because sometimes people get so caught up on the problem that they don't spend any time focusing on the solution. And so staying solution focused and solution oriented is what gets you to the next level. And you demonstrated that very early on. So went to high school, then decided I need to figure something else out, went to the military. Talk to me about what happened after you came out of the military. What was the next stop?
Ooh, well, after the military, I went home, lived with my mom, and it was more the same. And so I said, okay, I did the reserve. So, when you finish the first part of training where you're there full time, now you go home because it's the reserve. So you only show up 1 weekend a month. So now I've got to figure out, what it is I want to do. And I wanted to go to college. I decided I wanted to go to college. I had a friend who had an aunt who went to Florida A&M University, and they helped me fill out my application, and she was going to college. I'm like, yeah, I'll go to college. And I told my mom I got a letter, and I got a conditional acceptance because I did so terrible on the SAT. I didn't test well. And I said, look, I got accepted to college. And initially she seemed excited, but in the end, she didn't want me to go. And when I look back, I don't know what it was. Separation anxiety, whether or not she needed me to stay and help pay the bills, but she wasn't supportive. So when it was time for me to leave, she was angry. She wasn't supportive. She ended up actually putting me out. Wow. And I caught a ride with all my belongings with my friend and her mom up to start college. And when I got there, had no money, not a dollar. And I walked to Wendy's. They were hiring, and I got a job at Wendy's so that I could have money. And of course, because I didn't have money, I got financial aid so I could eat on campus, and it paid for my tuition and fees for the most part. And I was able to apply for loans, which I didn't do initially. I just lived off Wendy's money and my financial aid money. I struggled. Let me tell you, the one thing I remember my first semester is watching people order pizza, and I would be so hungry and wanting to ask, can I have a slice of pizza? Because that was a luxury for me.
And you couldn't do it.
I couldn't do it.
And it paid off. Look at you now.
I can eat all the wings I want.
All the Wingstop, all your Wingstop restaurant locations in Miami. Wow. Okay, we're going to come back to that. So went to college, caught a ride up to Florida A&M, up to Tallahassee to attend. Talk to me about what you study in college.
So struggling, right? I'm working at Wendy's, and Wendy's had this awesome salad bar. You had to go into the cooler like 20 times a day to get items for the salad bar. I was over that.
Okay.
And I saw a sign where they were giving full scholarships, tuition, fees, books, stipend for people who majored in chemistry. So I said, I'll just change my major to chemistry. Nothing caused me to think how difficult it would be or anything.
So wait. What were you majoring in before you
biology?
So you were majoring in biology.
I'll become a doctor. I majored in biology.
Right, that's right. So you were going to college to be a doctor because you need to make some money.
Make some money.
Always make some money.
Always make some money.
Okay.
Switched over to chemistry, majored in chemistry. Took me 5 years to get a 4-year degree, but that's okay. Majored in chemistry. Everything was paid for. Didn't have to work at Wendy's and didn't have to worry about money ever again in my college career because everything was paid for.
Because you saw a sign and you knew, wait, let's break this all the way down. Because you were in Wendy's, you were tired of refilling the salad bar. You were tired of going in that deep freezer.
Exactly.
It was cold.
Yes.
You were tired of it. You saw a sign and you said, wait a minute, they're going to pay for me to go to school, which means I don't have to go into the freezer anymore to refill this salad bar. Let me switch my major.
So here's the trade-off, and this is the thing that I think people have to understand. Wendy's and the salad bar, or majoring in chemistry and not going into the salad bar cooler, but having to study and work hard to be able to graduate with a degree in chemistry, which not everyone could do. I understood that if I worked hard and applied myself, I could get a chemistry degree. I realized it wasn't going to be terribly easy. Biology wasn't easy. But I also still understood in the present moment, working at Wendy's and in my future working at Wendy's wasn't on my path to riches.
So you understood immediately the trade-off.
The trade-off.
It wasn't that.
The sacrifice.
Absolutely. Talk about it. Okay. So you knew, hey, if they're going to give me this money, I'm going to have to study and apply myself.
That's right.
And this is going to help me get to my goal of being rich quicker or better than if I had stayed at Wendy's.
And I could be a chemistry major and become a doctor if I wanted to. Absolutely. Or a lawyer.
Okay. So you did it. You went through college, graduated, 5 years to take a... That's not bad. You were up at Tallahassee. Lots of people party up there. So I think that's awesome. You came out with the degree. So let's talk about the factor. Let's think about the fact that you did this. Mm-hmm. You did this from, hey, I need some help. I need to graduate from high school. I need to figure it out. And you were able to finagle or parlay, whatever term you want to use, your way into a 4-year scholarship, came out of college without student loan debt, correct?
No debt, 5-year scholarship, no debt. And let's not leave out the fact that my last year I got pregnant and had a baby and got married.
Oh, wow. Okay. No debt, debt-free, chemistry scholarship, no student loans, had a baby and got married, and you graduated.
I graduated cum laude.
Cum laude. Wow. Mm-hmm. Absolutely amazing. All right. So now let's jump into, now that we know a little bit of the backstory, because I think, people think that things come easy. And I think I understand the importance of detailing your journey and little parts of your story so that we can give the audience a full idea of what it took, some of the characteristics, some of the qualities that you have and you had to get to where you are now. So yes, sure, you're Miss Miami Wingstop. You opened the first Wingstop in Miami back in 2003. When you brought Wingstop to Miami in 2003, there weren't any other Wingstops in the South Florida area. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so it's now 2019. We didn't just get here overnight. Your story as far as where you came from and the journey played a very important part into you now being Miss Miami. And I must say that as we are recording this podcast, we are overlooking the water. I don't know if we're on the water. Is this called Miami Beach? But a beautiful view, floor to ceiling windows, wraparound balcony. So little girl from Coconut Grove, we have done some things and made some great decisions, and most of all have had the characteristics and the discernment and the foresight to make decisions that were in alignment with us, getting us here and then doing the work. Okay, so graduated with the chemistry degree. You're now a chemist.
Well, I'm a chemist, but I was supposed to go to medical school. So I went through a program and applied to medical school and only applied to one school and didn't get accepted.
Okay. How did you feel about that?
Well, it was a test again. I didn't test well. I don't think academically as a minority we're as prepared. I mean, I didn't know the difference between a sofa and a couch and an armoire and a dresser and the types of questions they ask. I just did not test well. I was smart. I've always been considered smart, but it didn't work for me. So I didn't get accepted. So now I'm like, I got to get a job. So I'm back in Miami. And I got a job as a chemist, and I got fired probably within the first 6 months. It might have been 3 months. I got fired because I just didn't do well. And then I applied to become a teacher. And back then there was a shortage of science teachers, so it was fairly easy for me to get a position as a teacher in Dade County school system.
Okay. So you have a chemistry degree, and now you're working as a teacher. And how long were you a teacher? Talk to me about that.
So I was a teacher for 6 years.
Okay.
And I thought I did a great job as a teacher. I loved teaching. I loved helping people. And it was fulfilling, but teaching was not going to get me rich. Remember, I didn't understand well, but those checks, I lived from paycheck to paycheck. I taught during the day. I was divorced by now, single parent. I taught an extra class at night, and I said, okay, I need to further my education. So I worked on my master's on the weekend. Wow. And it was just a struggle. Okay. It was a struggle, day-to-day struggle, trying to make ends meet. And I said, not only is this not the answer because I'm not making enough money, but the other thing was I'm not going to spend the next 30 years clocking in and out. I don't judge anyone, but for me, I did not want to be on someone's job.
You knew that wasn't going to work for you.
For me.
Right. And honestly, it sounds like you said, listen, I've been struggling. I've come out of the struggle. Mm-hmm. I don't want to go right back into the struggle.
That's right.
So living paycheck to paycheck and clocking in and out, even though you loved what you did, you knew that this wasn't going to be a permanent position for you. And you certainly knew that it wasn't going to get you rich.
And I think I understood too, and something I share with people is that our decisions that we make on a daily basis create our lives. So I had a child in college. I got married. My daughter's amazing. She's one of my best friends now. But it slowed me down some. I've made decisions along the way that rather than lead me toward my ultimate goals, kind of set me back. And so I moved forwards and backwards and forwards and backwards. So I think it's important. And I've learned and realized to say no to anything that's going to cause me to either go in the opposite direction of my goals or sidetrack me. And I think that if people just take that approach early on, we can get to realizing our goals and dreams a lot sooner.
I agree 100%. I'm a person that's big on goals. And I think that more people should really understand the magic and the importance of having a goal, because a goal is really like a roadmap. If you have clearly defined goals, your goals are going to dictate your life. They're going to dictate the decisions that you make. Absolutely. They're going to dictate the people who you hang around. They're going to dictate the money that you spend, because Absolutely. Your goals are clearly defined and front and center. And in order for you to reach those goals, there are certain things that you got to say yes to and a whole lot of things that you have to say no to.
Things and people. And I think many decisions are tough decisions that people choose not to make. And so people want you to empathize with them when they're not moving forward quickly enough according to their own goals and aspirations. But when you challenge a person and say, well, you might need to cut this person out of your life or change this behavior within yourself. Okay, are you going to have the self-discipline and the courage? And I'm going to share something with you. With my relationship with my mom, it's been interesting dynamic. So I didn't get the support in college, but eventually she came around and she was very supportive to the point where she even helped me out financially. Fast forward to now, I offer my mom the support that I would have never been able to offer her had I not realized the level of success that I realized. When my mom got sick years back, I was able to move my mom in and provide her with a home. I was able to buy my mom a home and provide for her. I'm able to do those things. But had I not been willing to make the tough decisions early on with regards to that relationship and those relationship dynamics, I would have stifled the growth that I needed to experience to get to the point where I could offer her some real help.
That's powerful. That is very powerful. The fact that you I hope you all caught that. Tina said many decisions are tough decisions that people choose not to make. It's a choice you choose not to make. And Tina just demonstrated and showed us how she had to make that decision. When her mom got upset and that she was going to college and put her out, she had a choice. She could have chosen to say, okay, Mom, I'm going to stay here and do what you want me to do. Or she could have chosen to follow her dreams. And she did. And then fast forward years later, she was then in a position because of her making the choice that aligned with her goals. She was able to take care of Mom. She was able to help Mom.
Exactly.
So I love that you mentioned that. Okay. So being a teacher, how do we get from being a teacher to being Miss Wingstop?
Ooh, being in the right place at the right time.
Talk about it.
My best friend dated this guy who played football for the UM. And I drove down to the UM one day with her and his roommate, and I ended up dating. Long story short, he got drafted and left to go play football and asked me to marry him.
Okay.
I left teaching, married him, and thought I was going to have the perfect life. I had maids and nannies and lived in the suburbs, and it was culture shock, girl. It was beautiful. I was like, wow.
But what is
Literally,
this?
all I had to do was be beautiful all day, every day.
Okay.
For as long as that lasted, until, unfortunately for me, the reality of that lifestyle hit for me, where he was caught up. He got caught up in the fortune and the fame and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, without going into all the details. And me, again, I know what I want in life. I wanted to be rich.
Okay.
I didn't understand wealth. And I wanted to be in this beautiful, loving, thriving relationship. And that's not what we had. Now, by now, I have 3 children. Not one. And I said, okay, I can't go back to Miami and teach with 3. I was struggling with 1 child. Can't go back with 3. So I'm thinking, okay, what can I do? I'm in this good environment. What can I do? My relationship is not working. I'm not willing to settle. We worked at it. It just didn't work out. So I said, okay, I had an opportunity and I met a lot of people, and a friend of mine was starting a home health care agency. And I said, okay, I should be able to do that. Very, very, very small investment. So rather than me spending more money on purses and shoes and all of that, the resources I had access to, I hired a consultant and ended up opening up that company. Very different. Let me just interject here. It cost me $30,000 to get into home health. Each restaurant I open, it costs $500,000. So I want to make sure people understand I didn't have a whole lot of money. I had a mindset. I surrounded myself with people who had the same type of mindset. My girlfriend was a State Farm. She owned a State Farm branch, and she sold me my insurance. So we became friends. And so I opened a home health agency, eventually went through a divorce, and built my home health agency. And so I left that relationship, which was cushiony and nice in terms of the finances, because I didn't get the other piece on the personal side. And so my plan B was open your own business, provide for yourself financially, and move on and continue on to make sure that you don't settle and you accomplish the goals and attain what you desire to life, financially and personally.
Now listen, you said something very key. You said, I knew that the relationship is coming to an end and I needed to buy less shoes and purses so that I can invest in this business.
Right.
So in that season in your life, there's a season for everything. After winter comes spring, right? So there was a season where you were buying purses and shoes and everything, but you knew that something needed to change.
That's right.
And so you said, I need to now redirect this money and use it as a tool for me to find a way out.
Absolutely.
And you use money as a tool in the tune of $30,000. You paid a consultant because you didn't know much about running a home health care
I didn't know
business.
anything.
Okay. You didn't know anything.
Right.
So for everybody who says, well, I don't know, that's not an excuse. That's not good enough. You paid someone, you hired someone, you utilized the resources that you had, used money as it's supposed to be used as a tool, hired someone, a $30,000 investment, and bought a home healthcare agency or started a home healthcare agency.
And so some people say, well, where do you get the 30,000? Well, where do you get 1,000? Where do you get 500? It's the decisions that you make. Because at the time, my personal relationship wasn't the best. And so as much as we had good dynamics in some areas, I didn't have the financial support to go open a business. But the decisions that you make are important. Can you move in with a relative and not pay rent for 24 months? Can you cut something out? A lot of times, I used to have this little group where we would meet. I called a diva group with women. And I know one of the women moved in with her mom. She stopped paying rent. She saved money, went back to school. And now she earned her PhD and she's a physical speech therapist and doing well. She was one of few that didn't say, well, where am I going to get the money from? It was, okay, look at what you have available to you. Look at the opportunities. What sacrifice can you make? Okay, her and her mom didn't get along well. It was a cramped space. She had 2 children. She made the sacrifice to be able to save the money and have resources and time to get to where she wanted to get to. So in the interim, I did have access to that money. I also went to school and I had 2 kids in Pampers. I was in a failed relationship. I was opening a business, and I went to nursing school to get my LPN license to become a nurse. I buckled down and hit it and said, by any means necessary, I'm going to get this done. If I didn't have access to the 30,000 there, I would have found a way somewhere else.
Because it's the drive.
It's the drive.
It's the decisions that you make, the determination, the mindset, all of these key words that I hope that my audience is understanding, because those are the principles that get you from good to great in any field and anything that you do. Mindset, drive, buckling down, determination, and understanding the season that you're in. So took that, you applied all the major principles that we need to be successful. And I don't know if in that moment you realized that you were applying principles, or you knew that you just it had to be a better way.
Listen, I knew I didn't want to be broke.
Okay.
And so a lot of people say, this is what I don't want. I don't focus on what I don't want. I focus on what I do want.
Okay.
I did want to be rich.
Okay.
I didn't understand wealth at the time.
Okay, I
wanted to be rich. I wanted to not struggle. I wanted to be happy in my personal life. And so I kept trying to make decisions that would get me to those goals. And I failed a lot. Mm-hmm. Anyone who knows me knows I failed a lot along the way, and I kept getting up and dusting myself off and trying again and doing again. And I didn't let anyone or anything tell me that I couldn't. I didn't care what it took. I knew where there's a will, there's a way, and I would get it done.
And you stay focused on the goal.
On the goal.
I want to be rich. Didn't understand wealth, but I want to be rich.
That's right.
Okay. So we're able to get the home healthcare business. How did the home healthcare business do?
It did well. The industry changed back in 1999. I opened in 97 and it was extremely lucrative. 99, they changed the regs when President Clinton passed the Balanced Budget Act, and a lot of money was taken out of that segment of healthcare. And I made a decision to partner with one of my competitors. It was good in a way that we made a ton of money and did very well for years, but we had a very tumultuous partnership that eventually we dissolved. But here again, we made a ton of money. We didn't have a great partnership, And now I'm in another state and I want to come back home. So I says, okay, I come home. There are no Wingstops in Miami. I'm like, how do they not have a Wingstop in Miami? Wingstop originated in Texas.
And that's where you were. You were living in Texas.
I was in Dallas. They had a ton of Wingstops. So I said, you know what? I'm going to open a Wingstop. That's going to be my next plan. I had no idea what it entailed. All I know, I went to visit a business owner. He wouldn't give me any information. I went to visit another one, and he was willing to tell me how much money I could make. I said, ooh, this looks like rich to me.
Right.
So I took money from the first business and I put it into Wingstops, and I opened the first Wingstop in Dade County in 2003. And my plan was to open Wingstops in Dade County and eventually transition back to Miami.
So here it is again. Realize you found yourself in another situation, right?
Yep.
I'm in a situation where I have to pivot again. We didn't get upset. We didn't just focus on the problem. You immediately switched into solution mode. And in that solution, you said, I got to find me another business. I have to find another way to bring more money in because I got to get to rich. That's
and to get home.
And to get home.
Business, because I couldn't transfer my home health business to Miami.
Okay. And you wanted to get back to Miami with the babies.
Right.
Okay. So you took the money from the home healthcare business, and you can say you invested it, you flipped it, you parlayed it, you put it into opening the Wingstop. Now you say to open a Wingstop, it cost you $500,000?
Yeah, Wingstops cost anywhere from $350,000 on up in Miami because of the construction. I say it's about $500,000. And one of the things that I did, I also educated myself so that I built my credit. And I made myself look good on paper, which you have to work on. There was no not paying credit cards, paying bills late. I learned that when there's time to go borrow money, because in opening several Wingstops, I had to borrow money. Right. Even the first one, I had cash, but I had to borrow the rest. And usually for a restaurant, they only lend you 70%. So I had to get a loan. Well, to get a loan, I needed to have decent, good credit. And I needed to have paid my bills and show good history on my credit report. And thank goodness I learned that. And I took out loans and opened the Wingstops. Yeah.
Awesome. And did you learn about credit history and stuff? Did you learn that at a young age, or you figured that out when you realized that you needed to borrow some money?
I put myself in an environment where I could learn, being around people who, and that was another choice that I made. Some of the professionals that I met in Dallas, I clung to so that I could learn a little bit more about business, entrepreneurship at a higher level, what's important in wanting to become an entrepreneur. And it's funny because I tell people this too. Someone says, I want a new car, I want a new house. And I look at the car and the house that they have now, and the car is dirty and the house is not well maintained. And I'm like, listen, whatever you have is what you get is going to look like. So you've got to take care of what you have right now. And so I maintain my vehicle, I maintain my home, I maintain my credit. I made sure I did the best I could do to take care for my children and learn the skills to manage $2, because those are the same skills you need to manage $20 million. Absolutely. And that company in Dallas, my partner and I built it to $20 million a year in revenue.
Wow.
But I had to manage $2 first.
Absolutely.
And not say when I get there, when I have there, you're not going to get there. And if you do get there, you're not going to hold on to it long enough. So yeah, I made sure I learned the skills and I listened and I was teachable and didn't come up with reasons why to not take advice.
Okay. So you were open, you were teachable, coachable.
Yes. And
you put yourself in a position. And then the choices. I keep hearing you mention the choices that you made and the decisions that you make. And I think that's just very important. A lot of people don't realize the magnitude of their own choices and the responsibility that they have to themselves for the choices that they make. Not the choices that anyone else makes, but the choices that we make individually. We opened the first Wingstop, and that was in 2003. You got a loan, which I think is wonderful. There are some negative connotations when people talk about debt and borrowing. And I think that people don't really understand what borrowing or what leveraging money is supposed to be for. So here in this situation, you understood even if you had a $500,000, it probably would not have been in your best interest to use all of your $500,000 to open up a store. Let me pay 30% and then borrow the other 70%. So you did that. You bought your first Wingstop in Miami in 2003. How many more Wingstops did you go on to open?
A total of 5.
A total of 5. Wow. So you started the whole Wingstop thing down here in Miami with 5 Wingstops. Now, were you in Miami fully then, or were you still in Dallas?
I lived between Dallas and Miami for like 16 years. 2 weeks in Dallas, 2 weeks in Miami.
Wow. Because you still had the home health care.
I had the home health, and then my kids were there, and then eventually I moved the kids here. And then I relocated home. But my life I was just driven and determined.
Okay. What would you say you learned about opening Wingstop? So with the home health, you hired a consultant. You paid her $30,000. With the Wingstop, you paid the franchise fee.
Let me tell you something. I am not trying to reinvent the wheel. If you can give me some advice and you've been successful, I will take it. I am not the one to sit here and try to tell you what to do if that's your area of expertise. They had a franchise.
Okay.
Different from a franchise, and the difference between a franchise and a startup is they have a template. Now, it was a new company, so it was interesting because I had one of the first 100 Wingstops in the country.
Oh, wow.
I had to find my own wing vendor. I had to buy my own wings, literally a lot of stuff.
Wow, so you had a very different experience from new Wingstop franchisees.
Oh, they get the help, guidance. They tell them where to buy chicken from. I had to they provide you with a resource for a realtor. I had to figure that out. My goddaughter ended up being my realtor. She's a successful realtor here, Claudia Hibbert, who was one of my students. Mm-hmm. She helped me find a location. I found chicken vendors, but a franchise is good for someone who doesn't have a strong business background, because they're supposed to have a template laid out to tell you and support you in every aspect of the business. So that's a benefit. The decor and the infrastructure is set by the franchise, and they tell you what to do step by step.
That's awesome that you mentioned that and you really break that down, because I know some people they feel like, I don't want to pay anybody a franchise fee. I can figure it out myself. But you just really broke it down and said you probably can figure it out yourself. But if that's not your area of expertise, why not cut the check? Pay somebody to teach you so that you can go ahead and move into the space of running the business and make it a profitable business. Right. Okay. So we went on to open 4 Wing. What has that experience taught you? It sounds like you're a serial. Is it okay if I call you a serial entrepreneur?
Absolutely.
And it sounds like this. I don't think this just started with the home health agency. I feel like your upbringing in Coconut Grove and all of your life experiences, every step that you have taken, every experience that you've had along your journey brought you now to this point right here. Did you ever see yourself owning several Wingstops, being Miss Wingstop?
No, I just saw myself as being successful. Okay. I've always felt like I had the power to be able to create the life that I desire to live. And, a lot of the perceived failures that I've experienced have been part of my growth, necessary for my growth. But I needed to go through to learn, to become stronger, to pick up the lessons along the way on the journey. I've always said I'm going to be successful, and I think I listen to people a lot of times that say, and I bring up people because my passion is pouring into people and helping. When someone says, I want to do what you've done, I'm on it. Let me show you how. What's frustrating for me is when I tell the story, people say, okay, I want to do 7 of the 10 things you did. No, it took 10 of the 10 things. It took me saying no to some relationships. It took me making some tough decisions. It took me saying no to myself on a lot of stuff. It took me not understanding some of the advice that I was given, but taking it anyway from people who had already accomplished what I desired to accomplish. There is no but, if I can't, I don't know, I want to do it my own way. You can, good luck. But when you find someone who's done it already and been successful, they kind of lay down the path for you. And so you can't really say, I'm going to do it a different way totally than the way most entrepreneurs have done it in terms of the challenges that you face and how to deal with those types of challenges and whatnot. Just being determined, being focused, being mindful of the decisions that you make, constantly making the decisions that lead you in the direction of your goals and aspirations.
I love it. I think I'm so happy that I had the opportunity to interview you, and that your principles have really shined through during this interview. That's the foundation of everything. Your mindset and your beliefs and your principles, they are key to your success. I appreciate you for sharing your story. So now that we know a little bit more about you, tell us the Wingstops that you own now, the locations of your Wingstops.
Okay, so the first location is the first location in Dade County, which is County Line and 441 in Miami Gardens. Before it was Miami Gardens, it was Carroll City.
Yeah.
That's been there since 2003. The second one I have now is in Miami Lakes on 186 and 67th. And the third one is in North Miami on 125th and Northeast 9th. And I divested interest in the other two. So I currently have the 3 locations.
Perfect. Okay. And those are some pretty popular locations.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, the oldest one is actually the best performing Wingstop in the Southeast region for Wingstop.
Wow. And that's the Miami Gardens location.
Miami Gardens.
Wow. Okay. Very good.
And let me give a plug for my GM, because my general manager who manages the 3 restaurants was actually my cook 14 years ago.
Wow.
And me showing some tough love and him being teachable 14 years later, he is managing 3 restaurants and making a pretty good check.
Wow.
He's pretty satisfied.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Talk about a journey. And that's, I think, what leaders do, right?
Absolutely.
So you go back and you pull other people up and create more leaders. I don't want to use the term boss, but that's leaders. That's what a leader does. He started off as a cook, and I'm sure 14 years ago, he didn't think he would be the general manager of 3 stores
at all, but he was teachable and coachable.
I love it. And you saw that in him and you nurtured him. Okay, so now where can we find you now? Talk to me. So I know you're a serial entrepreneur. You're always doing something, because the goal was to be rich, because you didn't understand wealthy, but now have we switched a little bit?
We have flipped that goal. Okay. My goal now is to have balance in my life, have a very fulfilling personal life, and a very lucrative professional life. So Wingstop provides a very good income base for me, but I now understand wealth a little bit better. And so what I work towards now more than anything is making money while I sleep.
Yes.
Generating wealth.
I love it. I call it making money while you meditate.
That's right.
We are not trading dollars for time or time for dollars anymore. We want to make money while we sleep, so that our children's children can tap into this wealth that we set up during our lifetimes. I love it.
For them. Yeah. And so I'm getting more into teaching, coaching, and primarily public speaking. So people can reach me on my social media, my website, Tina's Perspective, social media, Tina D. Howell, for speaking engagements. And I'm working on a coaching program right now that I'll be implementing. Hopefully I'll have it all done before the end of the year.
Awesome. You will have it done. I know you got it as a goal. You're definitely going to have it done. And we'll have to make sure we have you back on at the start of the coaching program, because based on what I know. And so let's say I know you personally, right? Yes. So I met you, has it been maybe 15 years ago or so when
2000, when I moved back to Miami, so probably 2003.
2003, so 16 years? Wow, 16 years ago. Right?
16
years ago. Yeah. So it's been a journey. It's been a while. And I have been just honored and blessed to know you personally and know what a beautiful spirit you are personally as well. And I believe that that's why you're so successful in your professional endeavors. So yes, if you can get into Miss Tina's coaching program, that's something that you definitely want to get into. We'll circle back on that. Before we go, I want to ask you, what is the one piece of advice or the one motto or quote or something, words to live by? What is it that you hold near and dear to you and you take it with you in everything that you do every day?
You know what? I was thinking about this. We have something called tunnel vision. We can only see what we can see based on our past experiences many times. And so we get stuck in our own perspective. And having a paradigm shift means being open to ideas, teachings, concepts that make absolutely no sense to us. And if we allow ourselves to go in the direction of those things that are different, very difficult for us to comprehend, that's where we experience growth. So just getting out of our own way and being very, very open to new perspectives, ideas, and ways of doing things. Because if you do the same thing, you're going to get the same result you've been getting. So please make sure you're radical in changing your methodology if you want to see different results, and never give up. Never give up.
I love it. I think that's absolutely some amazing advice and words of wisdom. I'm reminded that we only see 10 to 20%. We're only aware of 10 to 20% of consciousness. There's a whole 80 to 90% of life, living, wealth, abundance, riches out there waiting for us, but we just haven't tapped into it. So it's very important that you remain open, teachable, coachable, and be ready to pivot. I love, love, love your story. Thank you so much for sharing it with us today. I'll be sure to include all your contact information in the show notes below. Until next time, on the next episodes of American Cream, you all have an amazing day.
You've been listening to the American Cream Podcast, the #1 audio production show for people who want to achieve the American dream with cream. Love this episode of the American Cream? Head over to your favorite podcast platform to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It's very much appreciated. Thank you. For free resources and materials, go to theamericancreampodcast.com. Hyacinth Henderson is a registered representative of IFS Securities located in Atlanta, Georgia. FINRA, MSRB, SIPC. Any discussion of taxes herein is for informational purposes. You should consult with an attorney or an accountant concerning tax advice.